Hello, today I'm going to flat draft my dress. I'm going to use this red ribbon. After drawing it out, I had a bit of a think, and I'm 80% sure I like this ribbon. I'm slightly worried that it's a bit heavy because the blue and white design I liked was quite graphic. My print is a lot more floral and spotted. So what I don't want to do is that red grosgrain to overwhelm my dress. So what I'm actually going to do is just draft a really simple fitted dress, and I'm just going to have the options for either the nice red chunky straps and neckline. So I'm going to top stitch that on at the end, just to make sure I like it. Because I could do a different construction where I sort of sandwich it in, but then you have to use it straight from the beginning. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway by top stitching this on at the end, which means I can draft a really simple dress, and when I actually make the final dress I can decide whether I want plain straps or whether I want the nice chunky straps and the top stitch grosgrain everywhere. In order to do so, the only thing I have to consider is that quite often we have like a slightly curved neckline because it's very flattering. I will have to do a completely straight neckline on mine, so that's the only difference. The reason I'm wearing my trowel is because I want to get the straps right, and I could hold it on, but I find it, that's why mannequins are great, because you can of course pin it all on. If it's on yourself it's really tricky. But what I'm wearing my favorite brand, and if you can't see it but I can feel it, and that's actually a really good way of finding out where a good position for straps is for you. So this is for me, which looks nice when I'm wearing it. You could just use a top you have, and again I'm actually using the outline of it to see how high I want my dress to go. So you could use a top you wear on top, just lay it, put it on top of your trowel. I could just of course lay it out, but I want to double check where it actually sits on the body, because sometimes if you measure it's not quite straightforward. I'm going to actually do exactly the same on the underarm as well, so I just know the rough measurements. The only thing of course I can't do very easily is my back. I'm going to attempt to pin again where my strap hits my bodies on the back, but once I've done this and hopefully haven't poked myself in the finger, I've done it, so you can see I've got a pin in there. Of course this is not perfect, but with these sort of points that will give me a slight outline of how I want my flat drafting to do, and when the drafting is really simple, and then I will make a trowel and check whether I actually want to use a red grosgrain or not. I'm using my super fitted block, which you can see actually has seams rather than darts, because of course seams let you to really shape around the bust line, which means it's great if you're using it as it exists, slightly trickier if you want to do some dart manipulation. So I'm going to put this aside. So you can see I've actually laid, because this is a really flattering seam, but I laid it together so it's closed at the top and nearly up to the bust point, and then you got this really big darts over shaping at the bottom, because I want to draw on my line here, and at the back I've done the same, because again I want to draw my line across. So I've lined it up in the middle, which means down here is actually slightly overlapping, so I will just have to keep it in mind. And I'm using pens, but with a style like that I would definitely use pencils, but I want you to see it. So what I will do is when I trace it through, I will trace the inside of my marker pen, so I know that's exactly the size I need. So all I now need to do is just quickly measure everything. So I'm not expecting it to be absolutely perfect, but it'd be a really good indication of where I want things to sit. So let's start with the shoulder. 7. So I want my shoulder position to be like this. And I always, when you draw on straps like that, what happens quite often, if you draw it at an angle, it ends up going across, because this is still a straight line on the shoulder. But my real shoulder, of course, looks more like this. So it has a dip here. So when I draft the style with a thin strap, I actually ignore it, and instead I just do a straight strap and then fit it later on, because otherwise you end up sort of trying to do weird angles and stuff to fit it properly. So that is my shoulder measurement done. Then I just need to measure my strap position and my neckline. So I'm actually going at a 90 degree to my center front first of all, so I know it needs to be that far away, and then I'm not going to mark this point because I want to keep it as my master twirl, and then I just have the same measurement on the center front, so I can just again plot it out just using basic maths. So you could of course just lay it on top, but I find it faster to measure it. So this is where I want my neckline to be, which means, because I'm going to make it straight for now, so I can put the grosgrain on if I want to, and then I just need to measure my underarm, how much lower I want it to be. Of course I need to transfer that to my back as well. Just double check. And then last thing I need to do is my back strap position, and I'm going to use again the same method as I did on the front. So again, just measure exactly a right angle, and then just up 21.5. And on my back, of course, it's a lot lower than on my front. And that's also, if you use an existing top, it's a really good way, because that way you know it's not too exposed or too high up. You can find a flattering position, because quite often, but it doesn't really matter how complicated the styles are you draft. It's about getting so certain points right, so it's flattering for you. And of course, what I would normally do, I would do it like this. On this style, however, what I'm going to do is draw it completely straight, so it is a little bit strange. It's going to be quite a geometric armhole, so different from usual. We will see, because of course what I want to do is put this on, and I can just top stitch it if I do it and have like a little dart here and top stitch it like that. So I want to keep it completely straight so it can travel around the body, which means where in a normal armhole, my underarm point is actually going to look like this, I think. But interestingly, can you see the back is higher? So actually, let's see, if I start with a right angle, this is where, because this is such a fitted bodice, it can go a little bit strange at times, the levels. So what I might actually do, I think I need to move slightly down, because if I try to match them, they won't match. Which is of course why a basic bodice is so marvelous, because it's all in one piece, which means you won't have these sort of fitting issues. But if you ever want to do a really fitted style, knowing how to do it is quite good. And it has like positives and plus negatives, because if you used your basic bodice block, it would of course mean you would have to then do all the fitting on it. So that's why I like a really fitted dress block like that. This is more like a moulage block because it means you don't have to worry about pinching lots of stuff out. So let's redraw this from here. So I think I need to compromise because I even need to go much further down, because if I go up here that's actually too high, because of course what I'm wearing underneath is like a shaped one. So I'm actually going to go quite a lot lower like this, but I'm going to keep this position for the strap, which is slightly in from where my seam line is, which is of course really flattering. So I will keep that in mind, but it might have to be here rather than there, because of course the top I was wearing underneath is more like that, or the bra top. But I'm gonna try this out. This is where you sort of have to use your imagination. That's sometimes quite hard on the flat. However, now I've plotted out, it's really straightforward. The back I can actually cut as one piece, and I've already got my nice waist measurement on this style, so I know my back piece is basically going to be like this. This is straight or grain parallel to my center back, and the center back is going to have the zip, so that's a really straightforward piece. Then on the front I can either keep the seams as they are, and I think I will do it because it's a really nice flattering seam, and also that way I can arrange my floral like that and then have my second part of floral like that. This is not too big a piece, so it should work really nice with my floral fabric. So it's a really straightforward cut, as you can see, because all I have to do is trace this through, and I'm going to trace it through on the fold when flat. So I just have to cut out one piece on the organza because I don't want to cut it out in the fold. And then of course this I can trace through, and then on a piece like that you actually want your straight of grain of course to go down the center at 90 degrees to your waist. You don't want to have it either like that or this, which are more wonky. And the last thing I'm going to just do is measure my strap, just so I know roughly. I'm going to just cut a strap just so I roughly know how long I need it to be. And you can see I think my alternative strap position at the back is actually going to be better because it's going to be less angled. So I'm actually going to go with that, and that's where you sometimes have to sort of be willing to compromise. So even if you measured something, this is only like 2 centimeters, and of course on somebody else you could measure it perfectly, in which case you would follow it. But if you measure it on yourself, sometimes it's really hard. So it's then to see, oh, I know that seam looks really good on me, you would keep it on that seam. So that's my dress ready to be troweled. So I'm just going to trowel just the top half with a thin strap and see that it's first of all tight enough, because I'm moving from even if it's a very fitted block, it still has a shoulder, which means there might be a little bit of ease around here. So I want to just make a trowel and check it fits okay.